Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
The Thunder for 2 players and a first-round draft pick. The Melo era in New York is now over, at least for all intents and purposes. This deal will be official, we presume, on Monday, but for everything that's considered right now, this is a bombshell report here at a midway point on this Saturday afternoon. College football going on. Well, this breaking news is quite a big one. So Carmelo, perhaps with his best shot at a title, going to Oklahoma City. We are presented by Game Time. Get those last-minute tickets for up to 60% off by going to chatsports.com/tickets. Concerts, games. How about NBA tickets now? NFL, MLB, and so much more. Download the Game Time app today. There are the details. Melo alone going to the Thunder. The Knicks getting Enes Kanter, the center, Doug McDermott, and a 2018 second-round pick. So those are the terms of the deal right now. And really what led to this moment was the fact that Carmelo wouldn't waive his trade clause unless he were to go to 3 teams: the Rockets, the Thunder, or the Cavs. Initially, it was just the Rockets, and as the Knicks and Melo got closer to camp, it was clear that the pressure was mounting, and Carmelo Anthony opened up his trade clause a little more in terms of willing to waive it and perhaps going to the Cavs, going to the Thunder. The Thunder beat the Cavs to the punch, it's clear, and Carmelo is now going to be in the Western Conference and perhaps a big-time power shift here in the NBA right now. So, Carmelo going to be teaming up with the likes of Paul George, Russell Westbrook. It's going to be an exciting Western Conference this year in the NBA as we bring on our basketball insider, Brian Rauf. Just a friendly reminder, again, we are presented by the Game Time app. And, Brian, I'm sure you've been following this story closely. What a big one, huh?
Yeah, it's something that really been brewing the past couple days. I mean, it is something that had been discussed all offseason. Melo had made no secret of him wanting to get out of New York, and the Knicks didn't make it a secret that they didn't really want him there. He wasn't in their future plans. He had been trying to force his way to the Rockets, but the press of the start of the new season in the next week, the Knicks open training camp on Tuesday and have their media day on Monday, that sort of created a situation of urgency where Carmelo wanted to get out and ended up waiving his no-trade clause for more teams than just the Rockets, allowing the deal to the Thunder to get done.
And, of course, we are absolutely live right now, ladies and gentlemen, so do throw in your comments as we get Brian's analysis with this deal. And, Brian, I guess it begs the question, are the Thunder now going to leapfrog the Warriors in the Western Conference, or is that a little too premature?
I think that's a little too far. I mean, the Warriors are something we've never seen before. The Thunder now have 3 superstars, but the Warriors still have 4. They've played together, and they're the defending champs. This doesn't unseat the Warriors. I don't think anything will unseat the Warriors as a top team in the NBA until or if they lose this season. Now, I do think this makes the Thunder the biggest contenders to the Warriors. I think this leapfrogs them over the Rockets a little bit, just in terms of having 3 guys of this caliber on their team with now Melo, Russell Westbrook, and Paul George. But it doesn't put them past the Warriors. I think we need to see them play on the court before we can start making leaps like that.
And as we have a commenter here live, Eric Parker saying, how is that going to translate? Melo is a ISO player and a ball stopper. Another comment coming in, Brian Richard Allen Harris Jr. saying, Westbrook is about to miss camp anyways with the knee injury. Is he even going to be the same guy? So some question marks even with this big deal.
Well, Westbrook is just getting platelet enrichment surgery in his knee. It's not necessarily a knee injury. It's something players do in the offseason to sort of help heal their bodies. They'll travel to Europe mostly and get that done. So it's nothing to be too concerned about for Thunder fans. The concern, and we'll see how this plays out, especially early in the season, is how they'll fit together. Because last year you had Westbrook as the only guy really scoring option on Oklahoma City. You had Paul George as his only real scoring option on Indiana. And then you had Carmelo, who was an ISO player, even though he had Kristaps Porzingis in New York, he still operates that way. And so you have three guys who are used to being the guy and always having the ball in their hand. Whenever they team up and join together, it's always a question of how quickly they come together and if they come together really at all. So that'll be the biggest challenge for the Thunder and Billy Donovan to figure out how to get all of them to mesh and produce that into wins.
All right, chemistry, of course, so very important in basketball. As we have another commenter here, Corey Brown. Kevin Durant back to Oklahoma City? A trade in March 2018? What do you think, Brian?
That would be interesting. I mean, if he regrets leaving so much and wants to play for a super team, I guess there's an option. But I think his basketball situation in Golden State is pretty solid. I don't think he's going to leave there anytime soon.
Now, one big breaking news item at a time here, Brian, and I want you to talk about the Oklahoma City offseason so far, because it's been a whirlwind in your eyes. Just document what has been going on so far.
It's been incredible. I mean, going off the year they had, we weren't sure how they were going to do without Durant, and they ended up grabbing a 6th seed, and Westbrook became the best player in the league, winning MVP. And then this offseason, they essentially turned 4 role players, some with bad contracts, into 2 superstars. You have the Pacers trade. They got them Paul George. They sent Victor Oladipo in the worst contract in the NBA and Domantas Sabonis to Indiana for him. And then with this trade, you're sending Enes Kanter and Doug McDermott, 2 bench guys, and getting Carmelo Anthony back. So what Sam Presti's been able to do in turning 4 mediocre players into 2 superstars has been absolutely incredible. And in this crazy offseason we've seen with a bunch of superstars changing teams, there's no question now that Oklahoma City made themselves the best, improved the most this offseason.
And talking about improvement, Brian, let's just kind of talk about a little microcosm of the power rankings here. You have the Thunder rising from 6 to about 2. Is that correct?
Yes, this makes them the biggest challenge to the Warriors. I think you have the top 3 teams in the league are all in the West, with Golden State obviously 1, and then Thunder and Houston 2 and 3. I think with this, the Thunder have more talent than the Rockets, and that can kind of push them to 2. I have no problem if you want to put the Rockets at 2 and Thunder at 3. It'd be a kind of thing. The Thunder have more superstars and a solid bench, but the Rockets have 2, and they have questions of their own with how Chris Paul and James Harden are going to play together, but have some more proven bench pieces. So I would put the Thunder at 2 for right now. I have no problem with the Rockets being there. I think it's more of a 2A, 2B situation. I give a slight edge to the Thunder. But you have the 3 best teams in the West now. And you can talk about whether the Celtics or the Cavs can challenge any one of them. I think whoever comes out of the West is winning the NBA Finals.
All right, we have a straight-up question for you, Brian, from one of our commenters, PJ Irving, asking, all right, can the Thunder beat the Golden State Warriors? Let's assume a neutral site here, Brian. Your thoughts?
They can. They're as equipped as anybody who can. I'm not saying they will. We'll have an answer. We won't know the answer to this until 3/4 of the way through the season when we see how all of them mesh on the court. We won't know until then. They're more equipped than anybody else is in the league to do it. And so because of that, I say there's the possibility. The possibility might be 1 or 2%, but there's the possibility. They have as much of that possibility as anybody in the league.
And, of course, as we bring up the weigh-in graphic, folks, we want you to give your thoughts. Can the Thunder win the West and move on to the finals in 2018 with now being equipped with Mr. Anthony? So we will see as you guys throw in your thoughts into the comment bar. Brian, it's interesting. It was a saga where Carmelo was first willing to go to Houston, and then, he opened up and said, all right, I could go to Cleveland, I could go to Oklahoma City. Do you think it was kind of a sprint to the finish? Because that's kind of how I envisioned it, between Cleveland and Oklahoma City in terms of grabbing Carmelo.
Yeah, you can throw Portland in there as well. Portland was a team that really wanted him, and a team that Melo was somewhat interested in, teaming up with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in Portland. He wanted to go to Houston. That I think is probably still his preferred destination, but New York didn't like what Houston could offer them after they gave up most of their quality tradable assets to the Clippers for Chris Paul. So that allowed essentially allowed or forced Carmelo to open up his other options. Cleveland wanted him, but had no real way under the cap to absorb his contract. They didn't have anybody they could really give up to create enough cap space, or nobody they wanted to give up to create enough cap space. So it essentially came down to the Thunder and the Blazers in this race for Carmelo, and the Thunder presented a better opportunity to win a title than Portland did, which is why the Knicks and Carmelo ultimately accepted the deal that Oklahoma City offered.
And Brian, let's not neglect the other side of this deal, of course. We have the New York Knicks, and it seems as though they were ready to move on from Melo. Melo was ready to move on himself as well. And so they get a couple of players from the Thunder, and they get a 2018 second-round pick for the draft. I mean, in terms of power rankings, I'm sure you're just going to say that, if anything, they'll move a little bit down in what you have right now. But in terms of the long term for New York, how important is this?
I don't think it really has an effect on the Knicks one way or the other. And now, this is not a sizable return for a guy of Carmelo Anthony's stature. It kind of tells you how desperate they were to part ways and get rid of him and move on, turn that chapter, all of those cliches, to advance their, move on without Carmelo. They were going to be one of the worst teams in the league anyway, even with Carmelo. This probably drops them down maybe 1 or 2 spots in the power rankings. I still think they're probably around the 25, 24, 26 range. You still have Kristaps Porzingis. They really like their first-round pick in Frank Ntilikina, young point guard. So the pieces are there for the Knicks. It's not going to – they weren't a playoff team that is now not. They weren't going to make the playoffs anyway. And so this gives them a better chance to play their young players and feature Kristaps as that number one option in an offense and sort of help this young group grow together, as opposed to Carmelo being there and them still having to play with and sort of appease Carmelo.
And Brian, I hate to do this to you, buddy, but I want you to open up your crystal ball a little bit here. Give us a little low-key prediction. I mean, is it time? I mean, can you predict a Thunder and Warriors Western Conference Finals?
That seems to be the way things are trending. I would go out on a limb and I would say I expect that to be the case. Now, things will depend on how quickly they mesh together, and because that will affect where they are in the Western Conference standings. Because the Timberwolves are very good, and it seems they're going to mesh pretty well together with just adding Jimmy Butler. It's going to take some time for the Rockets to adjust to Chris Paul, but that will probably be quicker than adding 2 new big pieces in Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. So I would project the Thunder to finish second in the West behind the Warriors. I think they have the second most talent. But again, if it takes half a season for them to adjust, and they're kind of playing mediocre basketball in that time, you could see them fall to the 4 or 5 spot in the West, in which case they meet the Warriors in the Western Conference semis in the second round of the playoffs, which would kind of throw that balance off. But I think they will eventually grab that 2 seed in the West, 2 or 3 seed. I could see the Rockets getting the 2 seed, setting up a with them and the Warriors in the conference finals.
All right, nothing like a little prediction time here on Chat Sports Live. Last question for you here, Brian. Oklahoma City, New York Knicks, first game of this season. Do the storylines just write themselves?
The NBA's got a fun way of doing this because the Celtics also play at the Cavs in the season opener for the entire league. So they got a funny little way of making these matchups sort of have storylines and make them bigger than just a single regular season game.
All right, there you have it. Brian Rauf, our basketball insider here on Chat Sports. Brian, we appreciate it, and talk again soon.
Of course.
All right, and of course, a friendly reminder, we are presented by the Game Time app. Log on to chatsports.com/tickets. Get up to 60% off NBA games, very relevant right now, MLB, NFL, concerts, and so much more. Again, chatsports.com/tickets and download the Game Time app. This has been a breaking news alert here on Chat Sports Live. One more time, Carmelo Anthony dealt to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, and a 2018 second-round pick. They go on to New York. This is Cam Rogers signing off, and stick around. Keep logging on to chatsports.com. We'll have more details as the story unfolds.